cross is not the end. The cross is not the end, but it leads to a new beginning, which is actualized and symbolized in the resurrection and in the letter Tav, right? I mean, there's so much there. So it's amazing that the letter Tav is a letter of hope, the cross, the resurrection, which is retied to the return of the Lord, the second coming, which is known as the blessed hope. Okay, 10th plague, death of the firstborn. The firstborn was meant to lead the family after the father's passing. It's one of the reasons why the firstborn was given a double portion of the inheritance, right? Especially in Egypt. Egypt was running this idea of primogeniture, meaning the firstborn, everything rested on the firstborn. Nothing was more precious than a firstborn son in Egypt, right? This idea of the future and destiny of the family depended on the firstborn son, okay? And we know identity is destiny. So the death of the firstborn on a psychological level represented the death of identity and hence a family's destiny. Hear me? Death of the firstborn on a psychological, practical, emotional level represented the death of identity and destiny. So if Israel had stayed any longer in Egypt, they would have become so corrupted by the idolatry and the immorality of Egypt that they would have lost forever their identity and destiny, according to Jewish tradition. So there is an important connection between these last three plagues, and I believe there is a progression. An unhealthy and corrupt mind naturally leads to depression. When you corrupt your mind, it leads to depression. That's why there's an increase of anxiety in the world and of people taking antidepressants and all this sort of stuff, because there's no true meaning and there's not the spiritual connection that we need in the world to find the wholeness and abundant life and shalom that God promises us. So the corrupt mind leads to depression, which ends up culminating in the death on an emotional, relational level, as well as one's identity and destiny represented by the firstborn. Right? So the corrupt mind, the locust, lead to the darkness, the depression, right? You feel like everything's dark, there's no meaning. And ultimately that culminates in the death of identity and destiny. So the only way the children of Israel could avoid the death of the firstborn was putting the blood on the doorposts of their homes. And Yeshua died as the greater Passover lamb, ultimately to save you and I from physical and spiritual death. But he also died that you might find new life, purpose, identity, and destiny in him. Say, I have a new life and new destiny in him. That's right. And so you're not a slave. You're not a servant. You're a son and daughter of the king, right? You're part of the royal priesthood. You're part of the holy nation. Say, I am a royal priest. I'm a member of the holy nation. God has a unique calling for your life like he did for the children of Israel. He has set you free from death to life. Choose life, right? And this is part of knowing our identity and destiny in Messiah Yeshua and walking in it. And these amazing miracles that Moses did was meant to demonstrate to the children of Israel the magnitude of his love, right? The magnitude, the weight of his love, right? And Yeshua's death for us, that's what it teaches us. It teaches us the power of the transformation and freedom that we have in Messiah, right? Come out of Egypt. This is the decade to come out of Egypt. All right. We can keep saying that a lot, but it's a reminder. We got to keep saying it. Egypt is so deeply ingrained in us, right? But I want to look at this another way, right? The 10th plague, God says, death of the firstborn. God says the blood of the lamb placed on the doorposts of the house will prevent the plague being seen, in people's lives. So what's amazing is this. I want to write this out, right? So today, the way that we write the letter Tav, okay, and this is a crude little letter Tav, it's like that. It's like tracing the blood on the doorpost, right? Okay, so but there's something more here, right? The letter Tav in Hebrew is the letter of hope. Why? Because hope in Hebrew is, we say, tikva. Tikva means hope. So the letter Tav, and I intentionally drew it this way to look like a doorpost, is the letter of hope, because the word hope in Hebrew, tikva, begins with the letter Tav. So the blood on the doorpost in the shape of a letter Tav, okay, was meant to, and maybe it was written different, but we'll get to that in a moment, was meant to be a sign of hope. It was meant to cultivate in the children of Israel a greater hope. So literally, when God told them to put the blood on the doorpost in the form of a Tav, he wanted them to have hope. And what's amazing is this, that in Hebrew, the letter Tav adds up to 400. Okay? Why is that significant? Because the letter Tav was a declaration that God was about to fulfill his promise to Abraham, right? Because the children of Israel were exiled and enslaved 400 something years. God says to Abraham, Genesis chapter 15, it's called the covenant between the parts. Know for certain that your seed will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and they will be enslaved and oppressed 400 years. But I am going to judge a nation they will serve, and afterward they will go out with many possessions. Listen, hundreds of years before 400 years before the children of Israel came out of Egypt, went to Egypt, came out of Egypt, God already said what was going to happen. Enslaved 400 years, come out with the wealth. Friends, the blood on the doorpost, the Tav equals 400. Come on. He's saying the promise to Abraham is about to be fulfilled. Don't lose hope. Come on. The time of slavery was ending, and God was certain, if God was going to end the slavery, he was certainly going to fulfill the second half of this promise, which was that they were going to come out with wealth, and that he was going to bring them to the land that he promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God was going to fulfill the prophetic word that he gave to Abraham. And that is so important because, listen, today when people say hope, it's like, man, I hope I really hope so. I really hope we're going to be able to do that. Or hope becomes this wishy-washy thing. Like, I really wish that would occur, right? That's what hope has come to mean for most people. But hope in Hebrew is completely different. It's not some kind of wishy-washy thing, but it's absolute certainty in God and in his promises. There is always hope because God keeps his word. There is always hope because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And because God keeps his word, the blood on the doorposts of the houses of Israel was both a sign of hope and a seal. Because the letter Tav is a seal of truth, right? We talked about how the truth sets you free, and just what we talked about, right? So it's a symbol of hope in the present, but it was also meant to be a perpetual sign of hope throughout the generation, because the blood that we remember every Shabbat, every Passover, the blood on the doorpost reminds us that God would redeem his people and keep his promises no matter what. Whoever heard of one slave nation coming out of the greatest nation and militarily powerful nation of their day? Okay, so the blood of the lamb in the form of a Tav declares God will help, and therefore there is hope. Say, God will help, and therefore I can have hope. Knowing God is your helper means that you can have hope, but of course there is more. In ancient Hebrew, the letter Tav, okay, was written in the shape of a cross. Right? So look at how they did the blood, right? They had blood in the basin and they applied it to the top and to the two sides, right? And so the blood, whether the blood was written like a Tav like that, smeared like that, or if it was written, put on the two sides at the top and the blood in the bottom, either way, it formed the cross. And the Tav at some point in ancient Hebrew formed the cross. So this means that the blood of the lamb on the doorposts of the homes in Egypt symbolically, prophetically pointed to the blood of the greater Passover lamb, Yeshua. And so there's great spiritual meaning in every letter of the alphabet, right? That's why we have if you become a monthly partner with us, you get access to our spiritual library, right? Our learning library, and we have a course on letters and numbers in there. And eventually we're going to get through all 22 letters, right? And this is so cool because the letter Tav, the letter of hope, the sign of the cross, the blood on the doorpost, right? Because death ends at the cross to those who believe in him, right? So this is the Tav is the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet and it's the blood on the cross, right? Because sin ends at the cross. The power of the enemy is broken at the cross, okay? And at his resurrection, right? He made a public spectacle over them, triumphing over them by the cross, right? And the letter Tav is connected to the cross, but it's also connected to the resurrection because there's two words for resurrection in Hebrew. One is techayat hametim, which means resurrection, and tekuma, which means resurrection. And both of them begin with the letter Tav. So again, hope and connected to the resurrection, the ultimate hope. So the cross is not the end. The cross is not the end, but it leads to a new beginning, which is actualized and symbolized in the resurrection and in the letter Tav, right? I mean, there's so much there. So it's amazing that the letter Tav is a letter of hope, the cross, the resurrection, which is retied to the return of the Lord, the second coming, which is known as the blessed hope. So do you see how all of this ties together so incredibly? God is a genius. He is a master, right? It's incredible how he's in the details. By the way, that should give us hope, right?